Global uncertainty continues to affect international trade. Among the contributors are the Trump tariffs and the wars in the Middle East and Russia and Ukraine. Let's get some insights on the business climate and his reaction on the recent State of the Nation address of President Marcos. We'll be speaking with Chris Nelson. He's the Executive Vice Chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines. Good morning, Chris. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning, Robert, and a warm welcome to all your viewers.
Chris, let's begin with the recently concluded mid-year economic briefing with the British Chamber of Commerce, where Undersecretary Alan Hepty revealed that Britain's investments in the Philippines reached $764 million last year, the highest record. What's your take on this milestone?
Yes, it's a great achievement. It's driven by the Actis Fund investing in renewable energy, particularly in the Terra solar field. But it reflects a growing interest by UK companies and investors to look at the Philippines. And in that context, Robert, I'd highlight our recent PESA Investment Forum, which we held in London on the 27th of June. And also, I think, that highlighted with Director General Panga the opportunities that PESA shows. So I think this will continue to grow. And as we move into next year, which is going to be the 80th year of diplomatic relations between the two countries, I think there's a lot of opportunities both in investment and trade.
Now, Chris, would you consider this as a strong indicator of deepening bilateral economic cooperation between the Philippines and the UK?
Yeah, indeed. I think that ties are continuing to grow. Our ambassador, Laura Beaufils, who's just done 4 years, recently left this Monday, actually. She said her farewell after having worked here with 4 years, and we'd like to thank her for the contributions. And President Marcos noted that in the farewell speech and also highlighted that, as I said, it's going to be 80 years next year. We have a new ambassador coming, Sarah Holton. Our trade is at $3 billion. Between the two countries. We recently had the UK's trade envoy, George Freeman, visit. And I think there is visions that over the next 5 years, we look to try and double that figure. So we see continuing growth between the two countries. That's what the British Chamber is working for. And I'd just like to highlight also our work with the Department of Trade and Industry, and of course the Philippine Embassy in London, led by Ambassador Locsin.
Now, Undersecretary Hepty also pointed out that Philippine exports to the UK grew by 7.8% to $546.5 million, the highest level since the 2022 peak. Now, given the impact of the Trump tariffs on both the Philippines and the UK, do you think it's time we pursue more bilateral agreements between the UK instead?
I think that's happening. I mean, the strengthening of the relationships this year has been highlighted because we now have a joint economic committee called JETCO, which is a further upgrading. The first meeting was in March, actually led by Undersecretary Alan Hepty. One of the things which the Philippines is pursuing is obviously looking at other trading areas and trading blocks. One of those is CPTPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Consultative Partnership, of which the UK is a member. So, of course, joining that will further strengthen ties between the two countries. And let me not forget that the Philippines is a member of RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, which, of course, allows British companies who come and invest in the Philippines to also have a gateway and an access into Southeast Asia. So, yes, it will continue to grow.
And in your view and observations, what key steps must the Philippines do to further boost foreign investments?
Well, look, I think what we want to see is continuing passage of the priority legislations. For the next Congress, we've been strong advocates of e-governance, Cybersecurity Act, and also the Open Transmission Act, Konitadong Act. Along with that, I think, Robert, we need to see further work on cutting red tape. We are an ARTA champion, but we want to see that moving forward. And that's why we're strong supporters of e-governance and also cybersecurity. The UK has a lot of skills in that area, again, as emphasized by our trade envoy. And we have two leading companies, members of our chamber, CyberQ UK and also CyberQ UK and Philippines, and also NCC. So I think there's a lot of expertise there and a need to get that Cybersecurity Act along with e-governance and the Open Transaction Act passed.
Now, U.S. President Trump said Washington will impose a 100% tariff on semiconductor imports. Now, what is your reaction to this?
Well, that's obviously a significant issue for the Philippines, as highlighted in your report. That is why I believe that the Philippines will look to need to diversify. Clearly, they've just had a visit to Washington. They continue to negotiate. The overall tariff was to 19%, but obviously you've got to look at key sectors. But that is why I think the Philippines, and I think this is going to happen across the world, will look for other trading blocks. That's why CPTPP is important. That's why developing increasing business and trade with the UK. That's why we continue to work with PEZA. We're very pleased to have that forum and to have the mid-year event, because this is all that we can relate back to companies in the UK and highlight to them the growing opportunities in the Philippines, not only as a market in its own right, close to 120 million people, and obviously young and skilled workforce. All these give opportunities both in trade and investment. So we see further opportunity, and to be supported by our incoming ambassador, obviously Sarah Halton. And we'll look forward, hopefully, again, to having our Great British Festival. I can see the picture there being flashed, which should take place, hopefully, in October.
Now, shifting gears, the British Chamber recently hosted a forum on smart manufacturing in the Philippines. Could you tell us a little bit more about this initiative?
Sure. This is part of our Trading Connect, and we're very pleased that we had speakers again from PEZA, from BCDA, and from one of our platinum members, PMFDC. And I think they all highlighted that the Philippines has an opportunity to present itself, as President Marcos has emphasized, as a regional manufacturing area for smart manufacturing. Now, linked to that, I think is upskilling the workforce, with obviously the issue of the US tariffs across the world. Companies and businesses are looking at where they need to be settling. We've seen that. As again, I have to refer back to the discussions I've had with Director General Panga. He sees opportunities as well for companies to come and do regional manufacturing. But linked to that, I think, Robert, is, of course, upskilling the workforce and, of course, passing work on cybersecurity. We need our companies to be secure. We need the Philippines to be up there leading. And I think there are opportunities, and we will continue to promote that.
And as global manufacturing moves away from long-distance production due to geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions, what critical transformations does the Philippines need to make it stay competitive?
I think you've got to add it all up to, first of all, as I said, as I re-emphasize, the ease of doing business, allowing companies to move here, obviously depending on where they go. Based on the discussions we've had, obviously the Create More Act is a support to that. I think also the workforce, we know the Philippine workforce is skilled, but we need to continue to upgrade those skills to make it competitive. And we need to look at how we can ease the companies coming and doing business here. There are other also macro factors. Got to continue to invest in the infrastructure so that companies can move equipment and clear goods easily. And I think along with that, though, I'd like to just also make a comment in the overall context. I think also the Philippines is looking good because also it's done very well on inflation, which is now at 0.9, which shows from a macro perspective, we're actually getting the economy, and that gives opportunities, depending, of course, where we go, as we saw in the last report, on rate cuts, but further sorts and boost the economy. So opportunities for the regional thing, upscale the workforce, but continue to make ease of doing business and passing key legislation a key factor.
Now, Chris, what's your reaction to President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s recent State of the Nation address?
Well, we were pleased to see that he referred to e-governance. As I've mentioned, I think also the work on inflation, I'd like to commend the Department of Finance and everybody involved. We've also assisted in terms of food security with our work on exports of British pork and beef led through our work with AHDB, the trade body in the UK. So I think that was all good. And I think an emphasis to say, invest in the Philippines. We're behind that. So I think those message points were very well made. And I think the economy is in a good shape, particularly with its work on inflation, and hopefully allowing Banco Central to, as made by certain analysts, to make possibly another 2 rate cuts this year.
Now, Chris, you've mentioned the good things that you've heard from the SONA, but from the British Chamber's perspective, were there any key issues or concerns that the president failed to address?
I think we would like to have seen him address, as he did in previous SONA addresses, an emphasis more on some of the key legislation. We would like to have seen, as I said, we are strong supporters of e-governance. We think that will be a key help. We have continued to support the need to pass the Cybersecurity Act, because this is a need that's being seen across the world, and we'd like the Philippines to be up there. And I think that would be a benefit to everybody, and the UK can help. We have strong expertise in cybersecurity. And of course, on the open transmission, we need to be able to have that connectivity to support those directives. So we'd have liked to have seen that. We'd have also liked to see, which he did do in previous SONAs, and all credit to President Marcos, further emphasis on the ease of doing business. We want companies to come here. We want this to be the preferred option. We want the Philippines then to use as a springboard for further work and development investment in Southeast Asia.
And finally, Chris, what's your economic wish list for the president moving forward?
Well, we look forward to obviously getting legislation passed quickly, working with the Congress. We know that the House Speaker, Martin Romualdez, has moved. We also obviously look forward to seeing the Senate, and the Senate also moving forward on those key issues. We'd like to see further rate cuts. Obviously, that depends on Banco Central. And obviously, from a particular perspective, we'd like to see clearly more investments from the UK and encouragement in terms of ease of business, doing business, reaching out to companies. And again, I'd like to just emphasize that very nice note he said to our ambassador, Boifisa, when she left, about the work she's done and the fact that next year will be 80 years of diplomatic relations. And I can only see that growing between the two countries with a further work. And highlighting back to your first point, Robert, the investments that the UK is now at a record in terms of infrastructure. So looks promising, but let's make sure we get that key legislation passed.
Yes. On that note, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Chris.
Thank you very much, Robert, and have a great day to you and all your viewers. Thank you very much indeed.
That was Chris Nelson, the Executive Vice Chairman of the British Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines. We're taking a quick